is learn how to go from store-bought sauces to now 100% homemade spreads and sauces. I was able to turn the bottom of our basement steps, again in a townhouse, into a canning closet that holds 500 canning jars. Thanks, Dad. And I've also learned the skills to be able to know what it takes to raise quail and chicken, to butcher and dispatch them, and take them from the process of the incubator to the roasting pan. And I'm even growing this year's turkey. And before we left, we also harvested some quail that's rested in the fridge, and that's going to be for dinner on Sunday when we get that. All right. So I just want to go ahead and share with you that many of you either have grandparents or great-great-grandparents that either lived on a farm or were closely tied to agriculture. In fact, that really shows us that we're just 1 or 2 generations removed from a more agrarian life to most of us now being closer to living in a more urban environment. And really what that underscores is that this really is truly a recent shift. So just a little bit about my own history. If I go back to 1920, my paternal great-grandparents owned a 40-acre farm in the southern countryside of in Louisiana, and they raised all of their own meat and dairy and their produce. Jumping into the 1940s, my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, lived on the Chester River and also lived a rural life with some contemporary amenities. Now my parents, we're now jumping into the 60s, they were able to have access to farm life but lived a life in suburbia, and my brother and I grew up in the same way. But it's interesting, now that I started canning, which I started canning in 2018, many of the traditions and the recipes and the farm life still resonates not only within my parents, but cousins and grandparents. That history is still alive, and that's likely probably your story too. So I'm here to encourage you that you can do it, and the way that we're going to get there is by what I'll go ahead and just kind of give you as a lay of the land. I'm going to try to, oh lordy, I forgot my timer, and I love to talk. All right. Oh, I'm really going to need like Leanne. I need like 20 minutes, 40 minutes, that kind of thing. All right. So what I have here are 6 sub-sessions. So the first is going to be the Homestead Hub, and this is where I'm going to give you a framework that you can use to start executing your homestead plan, no matter where you are in your starting point. The next part is going to be talking about how you can turn your existing kitchen into a homesteading kitchen that is able to handle all of the demands of preserving your food and learning some of those traditional skills in the kitchen. Next, we're going to talk about pocket plot farming and how even small cultivators can use compact crops to meaningfully contribute to your family's food source. And then in the last 3 sessions, we're going to talk about some of those skills that if you are limited by land and if you don't have livestock, you can still access those experiences, such as heritage handiwork, pasture to plate, meaning how to start getting butchering skills in, and then how you can then leverage your existing routine to learn how to prepare for farm and field management. All right, so I talked about the online me, and actually that bio was really good, thank you. So I'm going to skip over some of these things. But yeah, I'm a born and raised Maryland girl. I grew up in Western Maryland, an area known for the beauty of the Appalachian Mountains. It's historic small towns, and its role in early American history. After high school, I went to a small college, St. Mary's College of Maryland, in historic St. Mary's City, where my dad's worst fear came true. My senior year of college, I met my husband, who was stationed at the nearby Naval Base. Don't worry, they are besties now. And we now live in the center of Maryland in Howard County. I started off my career as an elementary school teacher, but for the past 7 years, I've been an assistant principal. My husband, Terry, as you heard, is a Navy chief. He'll be joining us here tomorrow. He's doing chief stuff now. And then these are some characters that you probably know. My parents, Charles and Robin. My dad's a retired senior master Air Force sergeant. My mom was a retired school teacher. Our French fur baby Thor. We want the flesh ones, y'all. We're working on it, though. And then my brother Robert, who we have a close relationship with. And my parents are joining me here today. So first, let's go ahead and talk about the Homestead Hub, because this is essential. And
I didn't look like I'm really popular. Okay. This one will not be quite as fun as the sheep versus the devil-eyed ghost yesterday. We are talking about homestead painting. I woke up on a typical summer, busy morning and just laid there. And this was a typical morning for me, and this time, I just kept laying there. I didn't want to get up. Because if I moved in any way, I was going to be in throbbing pain. It felt like my entire body was broken. And finally, though, you got to get up. You got 5 kids, you got a wife, you got 200 and something odd animals. You got to get up. So just slowly, maybe some help with the beautiful one, freaking out, back's hurting, knees are hurting, ankles are hurting, feet are hurting, wrists, fingers, and put the feet on the ground, and then just start slowly, especially hurts more in the morning before the blood starts slowly going to the bathroom, hoping I'm not going to fall down. I'm 40-something years old. You lose track when you get to your 40s, right, guys? You start going by now. How old am I? 44? Going on 45? Okay, this was a couple of years ago. How am I going to do this? Well, I remember Grandma had a walker. Grandma, can we borrow your walker? Well, it was more like this. You don't do that anymore. You get on the tech. Can I borrow your walker? Yes. Bring the walker down. Oh, Jonah, Josiah, go get me Willie. We had a side-by-side at that time from Komodo. We ended up calling it Willie, short for my wheelchair. And they would bring Willie up into the front yard, and I would go out there in my walker, and then get into Willie and go and supervise and point and fuss and encourage and whatever it took to get the chores done. That was the height of reactive arthritis. Any of you who watched the vlog a couple of years ago, you might have remembered that. I had to really figure out what was the most important because I could do so few things. It ended up being that the most important thing was getting out and supervising the chores. And that was the year that my children, who were what? 12, 11, 9, somewhere around there, they became men and women. They stepped up. They became servants. They
new talk or anything, but sometimes there's just power in in this kind of experience. So I've selected a couple of passages here to share with you from the new book, Homestead Tsunami, Good for Country, Critters, and Kids. It's been out for about 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. Chapter 1. It's titled "Get in the Game." When store shelves emptied during the spring of 2020, when the COVID black swan enveloped the world, did you panic or yawn? At our farm, we yawned, while most people panicked. That's not said pridefully, it's simply a statement of fact. Several hundred jars of canned produce filled our basement pantry shelves. Well-stocked freezers full of meat and poultry promised delicious, nutritious meals for months. Bulk flour, stores of maple syrup and honey, along with a neighbor's raw milk, assured us a future of thriving, not just surviving. For decades, America, more than any other country in the world, offered a false promise that we could abandon historical participation in the foundations of life, somehow freeing us to do more important things. We would be free to spend more time keeping up with celebrity culture, going to movies, attending football games, and visiting vineyards. We could go on cruises, shop in Paris, play more golf, and hit the slopes routinely. The ultimate freedom, time to play more video games. Liberated from life's chores and drudgeries, we could really live. No more weeds to pull, no more cows to milk, no more hay to make, no more eggs to gather, no more tomatoes to plant, trellis and water, no more meals to cook, no more canning to toil over in a hot kitchen, no more firewood to cut, no more larder to inventory and stock. We would all sail off into some sort of blissful Star Trek nirvana, eating laboratory concoctions, popping pills, and wearing spandex instead of Carhartts. We can unmoor from domestic drudgeries and escape into artificial intelligence, leaving our mundane lives free to pursue exotic activities. Iconic radio commentator Paul Harvey. How many of you remember Paul Harvey? Oh wow, good. Yeah, fairly conservative audience, yeah. All right. Iconic radio commentator Paul Harvey differentiated between two types of freedom. The freedom to do what we want and the freedom to do what we ought. He likened the freedom to do whatever our whimsical desires wanted to a driverless car and a train without a track. They're free, but not in any sense that is functional. What does freedom to do what we ought look like? It looks a lot like participating in life's most basic foundations. Over the last couple of generations, the hardscrabble American life centered around home and hearth has been replaced with convenience. We've contracted out the cornerstones of life to others, assuming newfound freedom would bring us to better places, viewing domestic chores and basic life immersion as unnecessary slavery. As a culture, we embraced TV dinners, cardboard tomatoes shipped across the country, Hot Pockets, and Lunchables. In the name of convenience and liberation, we enslaved ourselves to a host of dependencies. We abandoned the one-room school with complete local control to a federal bureaucracy, quickly driving our nation downward in academic competency. If you look at what 8th graders in Laura Ingalls Wilder's one-room schoolhouse needed to know, you'll see how far education has dropped. I have trouble with these tests, and I have a college education. The historic in-home and locally sourced entertainment and recreation model is now an outsourced video game conceived by nameless, faceless people a world away in both location and values. Instead of neighbors and friends getting together for a spelling bee, poetry sharing, or mock political debate where everyone brings something, we sequester on our screens with someone else's imagination.